Are we live?
I don't think so yet.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's extraordinary council meeting. So welcome councillors, staff, members of the public that are here and those listening online. We've got everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner. Keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Defamation laws apply to addresses in public forum. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. I remind all present that the video recording is an official record of council and may be made available to persons upon request in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recordings are permitted. Therefore, all present should ensure that there are no video recordings or photographs taken. Before we begin formally, I'd like to acknowledge the land on which we meet tonight, the land of the Gadigal and Bidjigal, and pay our respect to elders past and present. I would now like to invite Mr. Soot, Manager of Governance and Risk, to open the meeting in prayer. Please be upstanding.
Almighty God, we thank you for the community of Bayside and for benefits of living and working in this diverse area. As we commence this meeting, inspire us with the qualities of good governance so that the foundations of good governance may be established for Bayside Council. Give us insight to make wise decisions, integrity to face the truth, courage to make difficult choices, and compassion for the needs of others. And finally, God, the God of all comfort, may you comfort Pastor Andrew Harper and his family in their time of mourning over the loss of his mother. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Soot. Please be seated, and our condolences to Pastor Harper and his family. Okay, attendance and apologies. We have some apologies tonight as some of our councillors are on at a conference collecting vital information for us. So those apologies are Councillor Jansen, Councillor Naji, Councillor Barlow and Councillor Souness. And we also have two councillors wishing to attend online as well. So so if we can do a procedural motion, welcome Councillor Fidel and Councillor Awada. So that they wish to participate online via audio-visual link. And so I have a mover, Councillor Saranowski, seconded Councillor Muscat. And then we have the apologies. So all in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? No? Okay. There's no disclosures of interest. Thank you. We won't do items by exception because there's only three items on the agenda, so we'll do them all. This now takes us to the public forum. And okay, we have one public speaker this evening who is speaking against the officer recommendation for item 8.1, which is the draft operational plan 23-24, and which is the approval for public exhibition. Mr. Garnett, please make your way to the front. And as usual, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, councillors, thank you for this opportunity to present and discuss with you my thoughts and concerns regarding 8.1 Draft Operational Plan 2023 Approval for Public Exhibition. Upon review of the LTP, Long-Term Financial Plan, it is clearly evident that the financial standing of Bayside Council is far from ideal and that there exists a significant funding gap, over 100 million. Thank you, Councillor Hannah, for listening and paying attention and being in eye contact. One of the only councillors to do so.
I think that's not appropriate, Mr. Brownbills. Please just stay focused on addressing the council. There's no need to make comments.
I was thanking a councillor for listening.
At the same time, you're disrespecting other councillors, so stay focused on the message you wish councillors to hear tonight, please.
Thank you. Is that time included or taken away from my 55 minutes?
Please continue.
Sorry, I'll go back. Upon review of the long-term financial plan, it is clearly evident that the financial standing of the Bayside Council is far from ideal, and there exists a significant funding gap, over $100 million, in fact 109, for the next 10 years with regards to asset maintenance and asset renewal. Council reporting indicates that an asset renewal shortfall of over 81 million, which equates to approximately 8.1 million annually, or $22,199 a day. Let that sink in, councillors. This is a significant amount of money that council are currently unable to account for. To make matters worse, there is a cumulative shortfall of $22 million that exists with regards to asset maintenance. Again, approximately 2.2 million annually, or $6,027 a day. Combining these two figures together, Bayside Council will be required to find over $28,000 a day for the next 10 years to ensure that the asset renewal and maintenance required can be funded. Over $28,000 a day for the next 10 years. Again, councillors, this is an extreme predicament that council finds itself in, and concerningly, Bayside Council have been made aware of this situation for over 5 years, yet have apparently failed to act. Greg Wright, Bayside Administrator, stated within the 2017-2018 operational plan, council will need to carefully manage its income and expenditure through the use of sound financial reporting systems and regular budgetary monitoring and review. The biggest single financial issue facing council is the need to repair and replace ageing assets, while providing new assets to meet the needs and expectations of our growing community. Sadly, the near exact same words are being reported here today. As reported by Rodney Sanjeevi, Finance Transformation Lead, in his reporting, Council's long-term plan has forecasted significant infrastructure maintenance and renewal funding shortfalls over the long term. Essentially, this means that Council will not have the capacity in current and future budgets to meet all of its infrastructure maintenance and renewal obligations as and when they fall due. 5 years, very little has changed. In fact, it got worse in between. So what can Council do to rectify this problem, as it is apparent that over the 5-year period that has lapsed, Council have seemingly failed to act? In terms of the options available to Council to address the financial challenge, the reporting indicates or includes identifying and implementing strategies to increase revenue, reducing expenditure, reviewing type and scale of services, and any service inefficiencies that we can find through service reviews. So not really doing the service needs required. About increasing the revenues, the main option available to Council include reviewing its user fees to maximise cost recovery activities and reduce the quantum of subsidies provided through different user groups throughout the LGA. Let's just focus on this for a moment. It is clear upon the review of the proposed fees and charges detailed within the report that Council are failing to adequately maximise cost recovery activities. Upon a very brief review of the surrounding Council fees and charges for the hire of their sporting fields, it is clear that Bayside Council are seeking a mere pittance from home clubs and sporting groups compared to our neighbours. Under the draft fees and charges for the synthetic turf fields throughout the Bayside LGA, it indicates that home clubs are to be charged a flat fee of $20 an hour. Yet Randwick Council, the fee is $178.50. City of Sydney Council, $168.50. Inner West Council, $115. Sutherland Council and Canterbury Council, over $100. Bayside is charging $20 per hour. I'll close up. Thus, in fact, the fact that Bayside Council charge only $20 is incredibly disconcerting in light of the dire fiscal situation it finds itself in. Thus, it is hoped that all councillors, and of note, Councillor Barlow and Councillor Hanna, given your previous concerns raised within council meetings, please ensure that this can be addressed by council. Thank you.
Okay, councillors. Moved Councillor Morrissey, seconded Councillor Muscat. Would you like any discussion in relation to 8.1?
Just from the outset, I'll reserve my right of reply if there's other things that come out. Noting that 8.2 is part of tonight's meeting, I think that that item 4 relates to that and can be deleted from this. So from this recommendation. So again, please remove that, and then we'll certainly be addressing that in 8.2. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to the item? Councillor Werner?
Yeah, I've just got a few questions. So I'll start with on page 24, there's some really helpful information from the census. So there's some updated information which is wonderful to have. And thanks to council staff for calculating that. But I was just wondering, there's the percentage of households in rental stress and also percentage of households in mortgage stress. I was just wondering if this relates to, is that as a percentage of all households in Bayside, or is this households earning in the lowest quintile? Because usually rental stress is measured based on the lowest quintile. So I just wanted to ask what that referred to. I'm happy to take that on notice. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. The next thing was that in the fees and charges, page 151, there's been a dramatic decrease in the fee for fun runs, and considering our financial position, I think maybe that's something that could be looked at, because it's gone from 100 and something down to $50, I believe. So is that something that we could perhaps revisit?
Yeah, so what we'll do this evening, anything that's raised, if councillors, if you haven't done so already, if you put it in writing, and that will constitute a submission to council, so then all those things can be investigated and then determined prior or while it's on public exhibition, and then when we come back to revisit it after public exhibition, then we'll know the answers to those questions.
I've just got one more question, and you might be able to answer that straight away. On page 215, it mentions about banners that are put up, and I believe, I could have this wrong, but I believe it's the banners of sports clubs that are put up while they're playing their games, and then those banners are taken down after the game. Is that correct, or is this some other kind of banner? Because there's it's in the context of a fee, a banner fee.
Yeah, we might take that on notice, but it doesn't really refer to sporting fields. So it probably incorporates the banners that we put up as well, perhaps. But yeah, again,
Yeah,
we'll,
if I could ask that on notice, please. Thank you, or with notice.
yeah. So
Thanks.
what I might get you to do, Councillor Werner, is just put these into an email, and that way there's a record coming from
Yeah.
you formally. Thank you,
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Douglas.
I have a few questions. Just in reference to what Mr. Brownbill raised in terms of the difference in rates for soccer fields here in Bayside compared to other LGAs. I wasn't aware of this. Is it possible to get some information about that?
So it's my understanding that council are in the process of doing a comparison and looking at our surrounding councils, and so I think that will be presented to us soon, so we'll be able to see that. And I guess the other thing to consider there is, you know, we've got so much stress at the moment with in families as well. So it is a balance, isn't it, of considering being able to let young people play sport and be active, and so there's a lot of considerations there that you know, council will have to turn its mind to.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, we can't hear
Sorry.
Councillor Douglas.
I'll repeat what
We
I
can't
said.
hear.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Councillor.
Councillor Wada.
So we had a discussion at the council workshop in January about the fact that the rates from the industrial area and the Botany Court have actually reduced compared to residence rates in both Botany and Rockdale precincts. And I've been thinking about this quite a lot, especially in consideration of the environmental levy that we're considering for Bayside, which other councils have, and thinking about how an increase in rates in those industrial areas in the port, which are polluting and do have things like coal, could offset help us to cover both our deficit in terms of our maintenance and works, and also an environmental levy. But I think that would require a special rate variation specifically for that industrial area and port. And I wondered if council would be prepared to look at that.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll take that. Thank you.
So through the chair, as councillors will be aware from the budget workshops we've had, that's correct, that when we first showed you a reasonably even increase in the rates to achieve the rate cap, you did ask us to go back and have a look at the industrial rate and see whether we could rebalance so that the impact on residential ratepayers was less. And that's what you have before you tonight. So we've been able to do that. Remember, rebalancing doesn't allow us to increase the overall size of the rates we can collect. So one goes down, one goes up, they all have to balance. So that's where we're at the moment. Any discussion about a special levy for the environment, I think, is outside of the discussions that we can have tonight. That will take quite a lot of investigation by our finance team, and at an appropriate time, we're more than happy to do that work. But that's certainly not included in what we put before you this evening.
I have two smaller points just to raise in terms of the draft delivery plan. Let me just get back into my computer. Just to ask, 1.11, create spaces and places and interactions that are safe, accessible and engaging. If the council staff could please investigate two items that have been passed by motion previously to be included in this delivery plan, which would be to complete the investigations into the permanent beach matting for wheelchair access, like at Malabar Beach, be further investigated for use at Lady Robinson Beach and brought back for consideration at the end of the public consultation period. And the second one being for the investigation of improved and safer lighting for users at the skate park at West Botany Street, Rockdale, including public consultation of the surrounding homes.
We can have council investigate those, and then when it comes back, we look at if there's any changes or additions, you know, how the budget can then be sort of adjusted in order to accommodate any changes that council wishes to make. Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, just to clarify, what we're voting on here tonight is to put this out to public exhibition. Now, what I would encourage our residents and our ratepayers and interested parties to do is to make submissions. And that can come down to micro submissions about what we charge for sporting fields. That can come down to things like how they perceive the organisation can save money. But in particular, when we're sitting on something in the vicinity of $500 million in restricted reserves, and I've spoken to this before, all of these things are going to be at the margin. Until we can convince whoever is in government to amend the restrictions on those reserves, we're going to continue to face ongoing funding shortfalls when it comes to maintenance and renewal. And that's going to be the key hit. We're asset rich and we're income poor. And that's because there is a structural flaw. So what I would say tonight, this goes out to public exhibition. Those that are interested, please make submissions, and that can be incorporated into our decision making when it comes back. But we've got to really try and push the state government to amend that legislation so that it can free up those developer contributions for the purposes of maintaining the assets that are built out of those contributions through a future fund. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? Right, reply?
Just in response to Councillor Douglas there, I'd be interested to know, because I believe that Ramsgate Life Saving Club does have access to accessible wheelchair ramps, etc., but they're not used. So I'd be interested to know what their level of support is for that community, given that they have that that equipment and infrastructure. I don't know exactly what it is. I've heard that there's something there. It's not related to council because the Life Saving Club is not council.
Through the chair, we can certainly take that on as part of our investigation over this exhibition period. My understanding is that they were able to achieve a grant for the chair, but I'm not sure what the situation is given that.
Thank you. All right, therefore we have an updated recommendation, 1, 2 and 3. Where all those in favour say aye. Against?
Aye.
Declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. That now takes us to item 8.2. This is a supplementary draft long-term financial plan 2024 to 2033. Approval for public exhibition. Mover, moved Councillor Morrissey, seconded Councillor Saranowski. Any speakers?
Okay. To be honest, I was surprised to see. It's great that we're looking at our long-term financial plan. Has been addressed earlier, and it's put in here as a supplementary item. And the reason it's put in there, if I'm correct, Mr. Sheridan, is because there's been some fundamental change in the economy to interest rates and returns and things like that. So I understand the need for the re-exhibition. Fundamentally, if there was none of those major economic changes, we wouldn't have any need to re-exhibit this. But that said, I think there's quite a few items there that I was a little bit surprised to hear about, because I think in the last term of council, the councillors that we hear, and it has carried forward to the current term of council, we have made a lot of really good proactive decisions to provide strategic direction to council to address some of the long-term issues that are outlined in the report. So firstly, with item 2, on the third line there, we're not going to begin implementing anything. We should be continuing. So if we can change the word to continue, because I don't think if we use the word begin, it recognises the hard work of the council officers who have been working on these sorts of things for the last 3 or 4 years. Nor does it represent or recognise the decisions that council have taken in order to start. The way that's written indicates that we haven't started anything, which I think doesn't really do justice to anyone in the organisation. The second thing I'd like to address is just to remove number 3, because it's interesting to say that everything's in the report. So if I can just dictate some things here, sorry. Because in the body of the report, it's actually really, and the information contained in the body of the report in the background talks to some of the things I've discussed here. We've talked about this in the last term of council, the previous director of staff. We've talked a lot about the current director. So there's a lot of things that we're doing here. So I'd like to update that to say that the council provides a report with proposed actions and indicative timelines to promote the financial sustainability as referenced in this report, which does not involve increasing rates or decreasing services for Bayside residents. And then the next point, the report may include but not be limited to the outcomes that the property portfolio working group, is that what it's called? Property portfolio working group, is that the name of it? Land and property working group, sorry. The outcomes that the land and property working group is working towards. Continued review of rates for industrial and commercial properties. Extending Bayside's commercial waste collection services. Review of unused assets and those no longer fit for purpose. Which may include realisation of those assets for the benefit of the community. And a review of projects in council's pipeline that do not have reserved funds or grants available. And so that's item 3 and 4, and I'm going to remove the last point there, which that's now redundant. So the reason I'm doing this, councillor, is because we're presented with a long-term financial report to show that there's issues there. Now, the biggest driver of those issues is the depreciation. We're getting all these assets. It's new and shiny and wonderful. And Councillor Hannah has got fabulous ideas around using contribution funds which requires a change in legislation to do that. But we get funds from developments that we have to use for new infrastructure, but we can't use it to maintain or replace existing infrastructure. It's a bit crazy. So Councillor Hannah's, you've certainly got support there, and that's what we need to do. But by changing the word, I think it gives recognition that councillors in the current term, previous term, current council officers and previous council officers have done a lot of work on this, and I think that needs to be recognised. Thank you.
You happy with those changes, Councillor Saranowski? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Werner?
Yes, I just was wondering whether it's wise to put that about the Land and Property Working Group, because selling off a few properties isn't really going to cover that structural problem that Councillor Hannah was also talking about. I think if that's taken out, then I'd be happy to support it, but I don't think I can support it with that in it.
I think, Councillor Werner, what that's referring to is the work of the Land and Property Group, and the work consists, as you would know, of what assets do we own, which assets have a substantial return on investments, and which assets do not provide a return on investment for council. I'm looking at our whole property portfolio across the board. So I don't think it's the intent to indicate that we're selling the farm, so to speak. It's just saying that that's one lever that councillors are using in order to ensure we're working towards financial sustainability. So it's just one of those aspects of others that Councillor Morrissey has named.
I just had a question around the Boulevard car park in Brighton Le Sands, which I know is a long-running burning issue for Ward 5 residents and everybody that comes to Bay Street and surrounds, which is a lot of people. My understanding is that there's no reserve funds put aside for that style of development, and so would including this motion in there potentially put something like that the council has put a lot of energy into over numerous terms to revitalise it? Would this addition put something like that at risk?
And I suggest they talk to the financial.
So through the chair, councillors, you'll be aware that we've been working on a financial strategy to underpin the redevelopment of the Boulevard car park in the future. I think if we look at the intent of this part of the motion, and you'll recall we've talked about being able to use our strategic priorities funds. We've been able to talk about retiring some assets and to using that money to be able to augment the funds required for the Boulevard car park redevelopment. I would think that there's nothing in that that would erode our ability to continue working on the Boulevard car park. At some point, we know that we are going to need to do something, not only for Brighton and for the reinvigoration of that centre, but also definitely because of the structural integrity of the asset, and when it gets to the end of its use-by life, with cancer, with concrete cancer and all of those things, we'll need to do something. So we would continue working on that, and we continue bringing back to you the financial strategy that would underpin it.
Thank you. One other question, and this might seem like semantics, but if we're going to include in there which does not involve increasing rates or decreasing services, it does not involve increasing rates. I mean, I think that any forecasting or projection would have to include the normal rate projections, which are always going up a little bit. So I feel like that wording could backfire on us.
I think that that's a legislative rate peg anyway, so that's not going to impact. What we're saying here is when you bring a report back, don't bring the report back that says the way to generate more sources of income is by putting the rates up. Bring a report back that gives us other options, that doesn't put more pressure on the residents of Bayside. The rate peg, yeah.
Madam Mayor, I rise to, as I second the motion that was moved by the Deputy Mayor. Can I just say, councillors and the members of the public that are watching this on Facebook, this is not just Bayside Council. This is all the councils right across New South Wales. And I just want to put the residents at minds at ease that we're not going broke. This is the financial plan to year 2033. And the one thing for me is, Bayside Council, I've always strongly believed that you provide libraries, swimming pool, fields, sporting fields, facilities for our community. They're the things that will always be protected. And it's always a good idea every so often to look at your current assets. We will never ever be, no council in New South Wales, you can not dodge in the books, but revalue your assets, and all of a sudden you're going to be debt free on it. And that's the critical issue that I've met, all the issues in local government. The cost, we're so close to the port, maintenance is a big problem for us. Our roads, our footpaths, on it. But the fundamental issue that will always protect is the libraries, make sure our sporting fields are maintained and our community facilities are maintained. That is our core business. Everything else is can be looked at in one way or another. And it's always good to look at your assets. And even tonight we're going to look at a property that the council owns. You've always got to look at, are we getting value for money on a decaying property or properties on it? If you look at Woolite Creek, the area in Woolite Creek in Waterton is such a buzz. We're going to create a new park. Now, all I can say is, and I regularly go to Woolite Creek and talk to the residents, and I'm sure the second ward councils will confirm. It's such exciting news that we're going to create a new park. But I do recall a few years ago, people were attacking us for the amount of money we're going to spend. We're providing facilities. Look at Cal Park across the road. We've spent probably millions there upgrading the facilities. It's all about facilities for the community. And just to put people's mind at it, by increasing the fees for sporting groups is not going to improve much in terms of our financial existence, because we probably, I'm not sure, and I thank Carly for bringing it to my attention. I'll certainly make inquiries, but a lot of these groups are community-based. Whether we like it or not, technically we are in a recession. Times are tough, I can tell you. I'm in the banking industry, times are, and the Deputy Mayor will tell you. Times are tough and hard. We've gone through COVID. Look at all the businesses have gone. But yeah, I was only watching the news yesterday. Jenny Craig's gone. I was thinking of joining Jenny Craig. She's a bit away. And I was going to ask my Siamese. No, and then I was going to ask my Siamese twin, Michael, you to come with me, Jenny Craig. And they're going belly up. Times are tough. Yeah.
All right. Shh.
No, but even down to Brighton, talking to some of the restaurateurs, they are feeling the pinch at the moment because people aren't going out as much as before. We're in a recession. And I certainly wouldn't be supporting any rate increases to the residential component. Maybe have an open mind in terms of the industrial to maybe, and as the General Manager for you, Madam Mayor, said, at the end of the day, it's a pool of money. We can't increase the pool of money, so it's a balancing act. We raise one, but it can be someone down. But I'll certainly support that. But I just want to make that comment, as I said before, Bayside Council is not unique. It's right across the board. And hopefully with the change in the government, we'll get a fair hearing in terms of grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saranowski. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillors Morrissey and Saranowski for bringing this motion. Look, I I've said this before, and unfortunately, I'm going to say it again tonight. I really feel as though the framing of these sort of motions is incredibly unhelpful to how this should be looked at and how we need to consider this as councils, because essentially there is a presupposed position that we are meeting certain asset maintenance and renewal ratios set by the state government, and that everything else that council does, all the services provided for the community, the impost of rates and charges on the residents, should all be sacrificed upon the altar of a maintenance target. Now, this is a real choice. We can meet the maintenance target, we cannot meet the maintenance target. You know, there are playgrounds around that are probably not going to fall down once they reach a zero value on council's books. And, you know, that's how most large organisations work. Depreciation schedules often don't match up with real life. Sometimes they're worse, but in the case of public assets, they're often a lot better. To put it in context, I believe our annual rates, and further to Councillor Saravinovsky's point, that council is far from, you know, quote unquote going broke. We raise, you know, $120 million odd, maybe $130 million in rates each year. We could solve this, you know, this accounting problem tomorrow with a relatively small increase in rates, you know, in the order of 10%. Now, we as councillors, I think the view is clear that we don't want to do that. We know the community is doing it tough, but this is far from an insurmountable challenge to council, and I think we are in a good position to manage it over time. Now, in the future, that, you know, we might go, okay, we do need to meet maintenance targets and all of that sort of thing, and it can be solved in fairly short order, you know, in a quite a reasonable way. But as we stand today, again, these are real choices we need to make about how we want to approach this, and it is, I think, an absolutely valid choice to go, okay, we don't think now is an appropriate time to increase rates above and beyond the rate peg for the community. And I don't think that should be an issue. Just further to that, I think on the services point, you know, we can provide services or we can maintain a playground, and we need to make a choice about which is actually serving our residents. So I think these sort of dire predictions about needing to cut staff or increase rates, I don't think are the entire conversation, and I think we do need to look at it holistically. So I support Councillor Morrissey and Councillor Saravinovsky's motion. I think we have lots of options moving forward. Effectively the entire, you know, shortfall that's been identified, again, to meet you know, ratios set by the state government, is a couple of projects. You know, we're not a small organisation. We are providing great facilities for the community. And the other thing that I think should be recognised is that more and more one-off grant funding is being given to upgrade local facilities from the state and federal governments. And unfortunately, when you look at things like maintenance ratios and renewal ratios, that are, you know, we get a great new facility, and then council goes, oh, we've got a new expense. It's not really a realistic way of looking at what is actually happening on the ground. You know, you're basically saying, oh, we've got this great new facility that kids can go and play at and kick a ball around, or, you know, go down to the archery hall and learn how to, you know, become an Olympic archer. And we go, what a disaster. This is terrible for the community. It's, you know, our ratio in our ILG reporting is decreased by 0.2%. You know, let's pack up shop and go home because it's all a disaster. So look, I think, you know, we're not, you know, we shouldn't be hung up, I think, on accounting treatment. We are still running a cash surplus. These are genuine choices that we should be making, but we should be making them openly with consideration of that and not presupposing a certain vision of the future in which we go, okay, number one concern, OLG, we've got to meet the ratio. That's all we care about. Everyone else goes. All the staff are out, you know, rates are up 100%. I just don't think it's a good way to look at this.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Are there any other speakers?
I know I've already spoken, but back to my point from before, would the continued review of rates for industrial and commercial properties potentially provide the space for investigation into a special rates variation for the industrial areas and port? You take that?
So look, I think it's something that with the report we've asked to come back where we've actually flagged on there around looking at the potential review of rates. So that'll be something that will come back as part of that, and then something that council has to, I guess, understand the implications as well, and is that going to be, you know, one of the solutions to more income for council? So we'll have to work through that. Yeah, once we get a bit more information. No other. I'll just check. No other speakers. No. Right of reply.
Thank you, councillors, for your discussion. And yeah, thank you, Councillor McDougall, because the whole, and Councillor Saranovsky also mentioned, it's just about keeping it real. Just because something is 10 or 15 or 20 years old on paper doesn't mean that it's unusable, particularly in with the quality of workmanship of local government assets and the cost to build. They're built for a long, long time, not just 20 years. That it meets the depreciation criteria. Yeah, a couple of things to address. For yeah, Councillor Douglas, when I've said continue to review, whatever that means, we're here to provide that strategic direction to the council officers, and the expectation is that they consider multiple options with that segment of our ratepayers. And with the strategic land and property working group, it's not about asset disposal. I'm not here to advocate getting anything out of public hands. We want to keep things in public hand. That's what we're all about. But it's about what that group is working towards is highest and best use of our portfolio. So if it's there and it's actually a drain on our finances, what's the point of having that asset? Let's realise that asset and put it into something that's going to benefit ultimately the community in the long term. That's what it's about. And some of that may include disposal, but it's not disposal to put in council coffers, it's disposal to reinvest. The intention is disposal to reinvest. And what this report is asking for is talking about the outcomes and making it clearer for the community as to what that working group is seeking to achieve. And yeah, in relation to the without increasing rates, yeah, the rate peg's the rate peg, that's always going to be there, but we're not, so don't say, oh, we're rate peg, oh, plus X. We just say, well, rate, that's accepted, and what we want is some options and some discussion around, brought back to council around what those levers are, that what can we do outside of that. The rates are always going to have the peg, which is mandated. The only other change which which didn't come up, and I'll refer to the director for this one, because I always love a timeline, and we haven't put down a timeline on it says provide a report. So I don't know if you want to do multiple or just one. Maybe just provide a report, take out the plural. But what would be a reasonable time, and it may even be draft or an update, but when could council expect to hear back from your team, just with an initial, if it doesn't have to be complete, a draft report, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, etc. Because I know there's a lot of work in that, and it should be something that evolves and keeps going, but when could we expect a first look?
Through you, Mayor. I'd be happy with 3 months in terms of just coming back with a high-level discussion, and then we can use that in terms of what we should investigate further.
Perfect. Yep, so if we can just add that, council provide a report within 3 months. And again, completely acknowledge it is a lot of work and it's an ongoing piece of work, but if we can get an update in 3 months' time, and then that'll come to council for consideration and review at that point. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. All right, we have an updated motion in front of us. All those in favour say aye. Against?
Aye.
Declare it carried. Thank you. Division has been called. Division's been called. Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Muscat. Councillor Saranovsky. Councillor Werner. Councillor Hannah. Councillor Douglas. Councillor McDougall. Councillor Cedric. Councillor Awada.
4.
Councillor Fardell.
For.
And I'm for. I declare it carried. All right. That now takes us, there are no questions with notice of next ordinary meeting. So this now takes us to a confidential report matter, and I'm going to move that we close the session. So in accordance with section 10A4 of the Local Government Act and Council's Code of Meeting Practice, I invite members of the public to make representations as to whether or not this part of the meeting should be closed to the public to consider the confidential items. There being no representations, I move Council closes the meeting. Okay, I call, we've just opened from closed session. I call on the General Manager to announce the resolutions carried in the closed session, please.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, as you can see before you there, Council has considered the acquisition of 64 Pemberton Street, Botany to be a strategic priority and for funding from the strategic reserve be used to fund this purchase should Council's offer be successful. Council also provides the General Manager delegated authority to make an offer for the property located at 64 Pemberton Street, Botany under the terms discussed and agreed in this confidential session, subject to councillors being advised of the updated valuation and information on various elements of the property, including the roof, that the General Manager be authorised to sign, where required, all documentation. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much. There being no further business, councillors, I declare the meeting closed at 8:33 p.m.